This type of person, this type of activist, is commonly referred to as the presuppositional apologist. By far, bar none, absolutely excluding none, the presuppositional apologist is the most difficult combatant on a political or ideological stage that I have ever encountered. You see, the reason why they were the most difficult wasn't because they had a large degree of evidence that they were working by. It wasn't because they had sound definitions that they were providing, and it certainly wasn't because they had a lot of good observations. It was in fact because of the complete opposite of them having these things. In an ideal world, we would look at a particular phenomenon and say, okay, we can see this particular phenomenon in some capacity, whatever it is. And then once we can see that phenomenon, we would say, okay, we can now draw a definition of this particular thing. And once we've drawn a definition of this thing, all our observations and definitions and studies and whatever else become a base of evidence from which to work by. And from that evidence, we can make conclusions. In contrast to this, however, the presuppositionalist does the exact opposite. You see, as the name implies, they presuppose a conclusion, whatever that conclusion may be, and then they work backwards from that. This is the reason the presuppositionalist was the most difficult ideological combatant I have ever faced, because, simply put, they didn't need evidence to come to their conclusion in the first place. And because they didn't need it in the first place, that means that whether or not evidence exists in the future or doesn't exist in the future is quite honestly irrelevant, because they never used evidence in the first place to come to these positions. So when faced with someone like myself, who is trying to use evidence to change a person's mind on some given point of view, it fell on deaf ears. Because, again, whether or not I had evidence was irrelevant. What the presuppositionalist was using in place of evidence, however, was, as Ben Shapiro inevitably popularized, although the atheist community did this long before him, was feels over reals. The presuppositionalist, for all the difficulties that they have given me over the years, taught me one very good lesson about politics. They taught me that politics is not a simple, straightforward process of choosing a target, whatever that may be, and then crafting an argument either for or against that position, and then deploying that argument, so much as if every engagement is a debate. In reality, if you're going to be a political thinker, someone who wants to really consider what's actually going on, what you need to be doing is criticizing both yourself and those around you, friend and foe. And when you do this, you will notice that politics is in fact a game of pattern recognition, because almost everyone uses the exact same arguments to justify wildly different positions. This is why, when you look online for commentary about, say, feminism and social justice, or a whole host of other political issues, and the commentator themselves understands what religion is and what it does in social dynamics, you will inevitably see that commentator say, what these people are doing over here in the feminist and social justice camp looks exactly the same as a religious group. And then oftentimes say, hey, I'd much prefer to work with the religious people because they're at least a little bit more honest.